Instead, let's talk about the news, where the first news story is a show that's trying to get the kids. The Rocketeer, the comic book from the 30s, that was made into a movie back in 91 when I was 2, is set to return as an animated series on Disney Junior. Now, for those of you guys who are older and or live outside of America, Disney Junior is the little kids programming stuff. This is where you see Vampirina and oh gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. My niece luckily watches more of the Nickelodeon stuff, but it's a lot of like Blue's Clues, Sesame Street, age range of kids, to use 2 other programs that don't air on Disney Junior at all. Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is another very popular one. The interesting thing with this, and that has me a little slightly worried, is that they could be trying to do like a Vampirina or a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse to the Rocketeer.
Now, I don't know what either of those things are.
So
I understand what Mickey Mouse is. The Mickey Mouse Club existed from before I was even a kid, but I don't know what the modern references are to it.
Well, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse is basically Mickey Mouse Adventures, done in the Blue's Clues style of, do you see a TV like behind me in the middle?
Okay, so it's not the Mickey Mouse Club like the kids sitting around.
It's Mickey and all the other cartoon characters. They're doing, and the thing with them is he has a thing called Toodles, which it looks like a Mickey Mouse style speak and spell, where it has 4 different things that would help throughout the story, and you say cheers as you're doing the thing. I wish I could say that I know this from my niece, but no, I've watched it before my niece was even born. So it's just, because I'm that big of a nerd, and it's like, yeah, let's watch this. Why not? But then Vampirina is very, like, it's taking the vampires and the, like that type of stuff and making it really, really kiddie, really young and all that. So I'm like, all right, cool. Not my style, but sure.
Well, it's for children, but so your concern is that they're gonna skew young for the kids show.
To me, it seems like the Rocketeer is to reimagine the story, aiming it towards kids 2 to 7, along with their families. It seems really weird when it was originally a PG rated movie.
No, I'll go even weirder for you. So the Rocketeer, for a long time, the girlfriend of the Rocketeer was Betty Page. Betty Page was a pinup model, and like very popular. Disappeared. People thought she was dead for a long time. So the people just started using her likeness in the book as the girlfriend. They had to change it for the movie. They had Jennifer Connelly play Jenny, I think, as opposed to Betty. But it was still like trying to be a hearkening back to the fact that it was about Betty Page was the basis for the girlfriend in that. I don't see Betty Page working in a cartoon series for 4 and 5-year-olds.
And where I saw it in here, it said that it's going to follow Kit, a young girl who receives a surprise package on her birthday, revealing she's next in line to become the Rocketeer, a legendary superhero who has the ability to fly with the help of a rocket-powered jetpack. Armed with her cool new gear and secret identity, Kit is ready to take flight and save the day with her gadget-minded best friend Tesh, and airplane mechanic Uncle Ambrose, who join her on her epic adventures. What it seems like to me is they are doing, they're doing a legacy. They're using the Rocketeer name and applying it to younger viewers, where as opposed to using, really utilizing the history that the Rocketeer comic has with it.
Which sounds adequate to be a new style of Dora the Explorer, which seems appropriate. Young girl goes off on adventures, maybe do some stuff where it ties into science because the Rocketeer has got a cool kind of science tie-in.
Yeah, and honestly, I guess that's where it'll ease my thoughts, is that it does turn, more like they say pro STEAM, or science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
If they do it as like a pre-STEM kind of thing for young girls to help teach them and get them interested in the sciences, that's fantastic.
No,
I'd
yeah,
love to see
definitely.
that happen. And I mean, the Rocketeer property hasn't been used much at all since the movie came out in 91. It's a little quaint, I guess, for modern moviegoers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and having a legacy character is a good way to introduce it to new viewers, because you can make references, probably subtle references, to what came before, but introduce a new character. So it's kind of like a Kamala Khan sort of thing that Marvel does. I like it. I don't have any issue with it. It would be a little bit weirder if it was like a preschooler version of Wolverine and Deadpool hanging out.
Yeah. I was looking at the Rocketeer to see when the last time it came. It was, as a comic book was out, and the last series was in December 2015, and it's been through IDW. So I mean, I'm not super worried, but at the same time, it's like, all right, how is this going to work? Sort of deal.
Yeah, Dave Stevens was the creator, and Dave Stevens worked on it throughout the entire time that I knew about it, but he passed away in 2008. So the fact that it's still in there it's obviously they've got to go through new versions. I can't imagine that it's remained as popular without him being the spearhead for it.
The next story that we got here is about the Disney Fox merger, with the movie, for X-Men movies and all that stuff. This is also going to talks a little bit about Brian K. Vaughan doing
Silver Surfer.
And so this is an interesting thing here, because this sort of ties in with the news that came out because I believe what I mentioned it last week when we talked about Black Panther, how Marvel only has, 5 movies out, or, like 5 or 6 movies out for the next 3 years, that they've unveiled. And turns around, today Disney announces their whole slate up to 2023, I believe, but it's all untitled.
Yeah, they didn't announce shit. They just said, "Hey, keep this spot open for us. We're gonna squeeze something in there," and it's like
a little bit of them was like they bumped up Avengers Infinity War, I think, a week or two,
because I told them that they were being dicks for putting out an Avengers movie on May the 4th. And that's right. Fucking, they listened to me. I know what I'm talking about.
But here's the other part on that, because that Avengers Infinity War was set up to be the free comic book movie. Now we don't have a movie coming out during free comic book weekend.
But we'll have a movie that will actually be out.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's because it would have been out for a week, in there, which, I mean, yeah, okay, it doesn't do much, but that to me seems weird, like, because I think we've had it the past 3-4 years where there was a comic book movie that was out the first weekend of May,
right? And it wasn't always Marvel that did it. And where's DC? Where's Valiant stepping up? Where's one of these Image brothers doing their thing? We have no shortage of movie material coming from comic books right now, so I don't really feel like for the movies the movies don't give a shit about the comic industry anyways. Yeah. At this point, they're not doing anything to help comic books. If you go off of Ike Perlmutter, the whole thing of Fox having the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, comics didn't want to do shit to help promote those. They basically tried to sideline the characters as much as possible to not make them profitable. And once Marvel has them, the Marvel Film Studios has them. Well, the Marvel Film Studios already don't want to work with Ike and his people on their properties anyways. Getting them kicked out seems to have worked better for the Marvel films than it has for the Marvel TV shows. So I don't know. I don't really feel like moving it a week has done anything other than give it more of a spread between it and Deadpool, and certainly between it and Solo. So if they feel like we don't want to be competing with our own properties, even if they're coming from another company, then we should just try to stretch this out a little bit more than we already were. Because Deadpool had gotten moved up in that middle section. It wasn't there originally. So maybe they blinked a little bit. Maybe they said, oh, well, now that we've got Deadpool in between us, we should try to give a little more room.
And B is bringing up two good points here. And he's bringing up that, like with the Silver Surfer part, he's going, couldn't this be Fox looking if Brian is quote unquote good enough to get him or to give him a shot at a Saga adaptation if this succeeds. And I'm sitting there thinking he doesn't need a shot. If any of the executives read the first issue of Saga, they'd be like, I want to do this right fucking now. Even
never put it past an executive to be stupid as fuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, it beats even adding as a screenwriter. You can look at the comic book and go, okay, that's the storyboard for it and all that stuff.
Every comic book would be made into a movie at this point. I get what Beat's saying. The thing is that hasn't Brian done stuff in TV and stuff before? I thought he worked on Lost for a while.
I think the last one he did was Under the Dome.
He did Under the Dome as well. Yeah, he worked on Lost a little bit in the third season, and then mostly in the fourth and fifth seasons. He worked on the Daredevil series. He's uncredited, but he has been associated with that. And his Runaway show is coming out. So he's got some cred, but we're talking about him writing a script for a movie, and then how many hands does that go through before it actually gets made, if it gets made? Yeah. What this is more interesting about is that Fox is kind of like, have you ever had surgery and you've got surgery scheduled for the morning, and so your doctor tells you, no, you can't eat anything after midnight the night before because we're going to have you in there early, and we don't want to have to be fishing around and pulling out fish sticks from your insides while we're doing it. So at 11:50, you're just pounding every fucking thing in the fridge. You're just like, God damn it, I can't do anything in 10 minutes, but right now I'm eating it all. And that's what it feels like to me is going on with Fox. Is Fox is, well, you know, they're going to close us down. Let's just do every fucking thing we can until we get the final word that we can't do that anymore. And some of these projects will probably never happen. Looking at you, Gambit. Some of these projects may happen and may be excellent, and maybe the things that get Disney to pay attention to go, well, shit, you know, these people did some pretty good work over here on the X-Men stuff before we got them back. Maybe we should let them come do stuff for us. Maybe not the X-Men again, but maybe something else in our properties.
Yeah, I sort of look at this in both ways, because Beat's also pointing out, you know, couldn't the DOJ still fuck up the merger? And yeah, because I mean, it's the article points out that this is very similar to what, you know, with the plans with the Sony deal with Spider-Man leading up to Civil War. You know, they had contingencies. And it's one of those things that I look at this and I go, where the DOJ could definitely fuck this up. Comcast could even fuck this up, because they are supposedly in talks with making a play for Fox as well.
For a portion of Fox. And one of the parts that is more tempting to make the purchase of them, which I guess is a company that Fox can buy in Britain, which has to do, I think, with more news stuff. I'm not sure exactly what it was,
Sky,
but it didn't sound like it.
Probably the Sky Network. Yeah,
exactly. And so I don't know how much of what Disney wants from the Fox deal is that. If it's a huge thing, sure, but how much does Comcast want to have the rights to doing X-Men and Fantastic Four movies at this point, when we've seen that it's been a really mixed bag, and most of it is like pencil shavings compared to oolong tea that is the success rate of these films. Like, absolutely, you got to admit Deadpool and Logan have been high points, but as of today, we haven't seen what Deadpool 2 is actually going to do, and we know there's no follow-up to Logan because that motherfucker's gone. So we don't know how New Mutants is going to work, but it turns out that they're retooling that a little bit while they're pushing the movie back to next year. We don't know how that next X-Men movie is going to work under Singer with Dark Phoenix or whatever. It's still kind of like, who really benefits from getting these characters other than Disney?
Yeah.
Disney getting all their stuff back under one house, huge. Anybody else picking up Fox and saying, oh yeah, we get this and we get these things, it's like, I don't really care about those things. Nobody seems to give a shit about a Fantastic Four movie. Do you know how to make a Fantastic Four movie? I sure as fuck don't. Why don't we just let that shit go back to the people? We'll take a check. You know, if we acquire it, yeah, cut us some money and we'll give you this stuff back. We'll be glad to lose this portion of it. But I don't know. I see this as Beat is pointing out, there's still 2 years before the deal would really be finalized, and that's if it's finalized. In that 2 years' time, do you just not make anything, or you do make everything? Lean towards making everything. Stuff goes into development hell for years anyways. The amount of times that movies have started to, like, oh, this got optioned, oh, it's got picked up, we got people working on it and everything, and then like 5 years later you go, whatever the fuck happened to that Sandman movie that Joseph Gordon-Levitt was going to do? Not a goddamn thing happened to it. That's the thing, is it wilted away. A lot of these will wilt away, like every other fucking thing that goes on a movie studio. But take the risks while you can.
Yeah.
If you're riding high from a couple of big successes and you've got attention anyways, and this is the only chance you're going to get to do this, do it. Make every fucking effort.
I'll phrase it this way, and then I'm going to move, because you gave me the perfect transition to our next story here. This is a great way for, whether it is Disney or Comcast, if they end up going like, well, we want to buy all of it, or whatever, to go and look at with these movies that will be released at the final ends of Fox, or possibly the final ends of Fox, at going, okay, who do they cast in these? Who is writing? Who is directing? If they've done good enough work, and you've hit this before, then go, okay, well, we will continue on with them as, like bringing over. I'm pretty sure they would bring over Ryan Reynolds to play Deadpool in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It would definitely be a more censored version of Deadpool. It wouldn't be the I'm going to call your left leg Thanksgiving, your right leg Christmas. Now let me meet you between the holidays. You won't get lines like that with him coming into the MCU, but it'll still be him. He'll still have that charisma and all that he brings to the character, and I could see it working really good still. Especially as a tryout, like especially with the New Mutants, like the actress who plays Magic in there, freaking, I'm like, okay, yeah, she looks like Ilyana Rasputin, like how I picture her, especially with the, I'm not going to dress like a slut, but I'm going to dress more like a punk sort of phase that she went through a couple times. But I mean, I don't know. And like I said, you led me great with a great segue about Sandman and Neil Gaiman. And now this isn't an imprint, right? It is just the Sandman universe here. It's that Gaiman's going to be overseeing. It's not a new imprint, right?
Well, it's hard to say. It's being looked at as an introduction of Sandman offshoot tales. So what we're talking about is Neil Gaiman, who is the creator of the Sandman comics that were huge in the 90s under Vertigo, which was an imprint of DC Comics. It was their mature readers, non-superhero focused stories. A lot of the characters did cross over with the DC Universe proper at first, and then they kind of like pulled back from that, and that's where Constantine was, Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, Sandman Mystery Theater, which is another thing. All these things kind of happened, and then most of the books finished off. Vertigo eventually went away, essentially. Karen Berger left. I think it still kind of exists, but there's not much to it anymore. But when Neil stopped, when he finished off the Sandman books, he said, I would prefer that you not use these characters. If you feel like you want to use them, come to talk to me. I'll do work for you on them again when I'm up for it. But if you use them without my presence or okay, then I'm probably never going to work for you again. Which is an absolutely fair thing to say. He didn't say you don't own this or you should never do this without me. It was just like, we have a good working relationship right now. If you want to continue having a good working relationship with me, this is the request that I have. So Neil is coming in and he's plotting some Sandman Universe stuff. There's a Sandman Universe book, which kind of like starts off the series, and then there will be 4 series that spin out of it. Some of which we've kind of seen things before with these characters or with similar books like them. So one of them is the Dreaming, but the rule of the Dreaming, as I understand it, is that it will not involve the dream aspect of the Endless, no Morpheus, no Daniel, but it will have other characters that have been used in Sandman in the Dreaming to run it. I think Lucian, who's the librarian from the Sandman books, and also Matthew the Raven are part of it, and it will be them trying to work with what's going on in the Dreaming without Dream or Daniel actually there. So it's kind of a mystery thing because I think they're wondering where he is. This is being written by Cy Spurrier based off of plots that are given to him by Neil.
Are you sure that's not Sandman Universe? That because looking at Newsrama, that one says it's plotted by Neil Gaiman and written by Cy Spurrier, Nalo Hopkinson, Dan Walters, and Kat Howard, where The Dreaming just says it's written by Cy Spurrier.
Right. I think he gave loose plots to everybody for these universe books.
Okay.
So he officially plots the first book, the Sandman Universe, but then all of the other things are things that he's kind of spearheaded the ideas and said, all right, this is kind of like my roadmap for this. Deviate where you think you need to deviate. But it sounds like he's probably going to oversee or at least be a mentor that you go to for advice on things. And I don't know how involved he'll be in it, but everything at the very beginning is based off of him saying, okay, this is what I think we should do, and then getting the team together to do it. It's based off of a couple different articles that I've read. The second book is House of Whispers. Now, there was a House of Secrets and a House of Mystery that have both existed in the Dreaming that were based off of old titles from DC Comics way back. They were kind of like equivalents of the EC Comics. This is going to be a new idea that is brought in the same kind of vein as those two other things. Those involve the characters Cain and Abel. This one is new characters, new things, but I think they introduced a House of Whispers in something in one of the books. It might have been in the last Sandman series that they did a couple years ago, but unfortunately I haven't read that one yet. That one's going to be written by Nalo Hopkinson. The artist is to be determined. A lot of the artists on this haven't been announced yet. The only artist I think that has been announced is on the Sandman Universe #1, which is by Neil with all the different writers, and it's art by Bilquis Evely. Next one is Lucifer, which is the character that we know from the TV series that was spun off from Vertigo series that came out of Sandman initially, although not normally a procedural in the Vertigo universe. And it doesn't look like it's going to be this one either. In this one, he's blind, and there's some completely different kind of feelings for what's going on with the character. He's a blind, destitute old man who lives in a small boarding house in a quiet little town where nothing is quite what it seems, and no one can leave. He's trapped. So another new take on Lucifer. They keep going back to the character in the books, and that one's going to be written by Dan Waters. And finally, Books of Magic. Now, Books of Magic is the book about Tim Hunter. A lot of people who read the book in the 90s see Tim Hunter as Harry Potter before there was a Harry Potter. He's a kid who is a powerful magician. He does grow up to be a teenager in the series as it goes along. And that's what he's going to be in this. But if you ever get a chance to read the original Books of Magic by Neil Gaiman, Harry Potter owes a lot to this. It's a little weird that they're all, I think, also done by Warner Brothers. But this is going to be written by Kat Howard. And yeah, it's so Lucifer, Books of Magic, The Dreaming, House of Whispers, all things that have spun out of stuff that Neil's done. Neil's done this before. He's had books. There have been other books that were done by other creators that were under his guidance because they spun out of Sandman. Colleen Doran, I think a lot of the artists that he's worked with has done this, where she did some stuff with like the Young Endless, and I think some of the other characters like the Dead Boy Detectives was one I think I remember. It's interesting, but the problem with Neil Gaiman stuff is you want to read it by Neil Gaiman, and not a lot of people remember Techno Comics, which was another comic company in the 90s. It was out for a little while there. Techno Comics introduced this whole new universe of things, and it was a sci-fi based comic company that had Leonard Nimoy was one of the people who was writing for it. Neil Gaiman was another one, and there were a few others. They were not actually written by these people, though. It was like their name. So Leonard Nimoy's this, and Neil Gaiman's Technophage, I think, was one of the ones that he did. all these books that had their names on it, and again, loose plots and ideas, but they weren't doing the actual work. And as soon as people started reading the stuff and realized that it wasn't them doing the books, they kind of wayside. It wasn't as enticing. If I'm reading a Neil Gaiman story, I want Neil Gaiman to be doing the story. I have a problem when they do comic adaptations of his novels and it's not him doing the writing for that. We know he can write comic books. We know he can script. So it's a little annoying to see someone else picking up the baton for that. It's not always bad, but I didn't want to buy Neverwhere written by some other person. I wanted to buy Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, and then, with the artist on it. So it's a little iffy to me as to how popular these are going to be. I think it's going to depend how much people perceive Neil being involved with it, beyond just saying, here's some ideas, go do this, see what happens.
I think this could fit in perfectly with it being in Vertigo, because right now the current seasons, and this is according to Vertigo Comics' website, the current series that they have there are American Way, Those Above and Those Below, Astro City, which is its longest comic that they've had, to recent
which is
history.
still weird that it's a Vertigo book.
Yeah.
But Astro City's jumped from a lot of different places to finally land at Vertigo. It was an Image or Homage back in the day when it originated. It was in DC's just publishing house and not necessarily under an imprint like that.
Yeah.
It's jumped around.
Yeah. Deathbed, which is its newest one. Imaginary Friends, which was last year, and then Motherlands, which is another newer one. With Deathbed #1 being written by Joshua Williamson, who's doing The Flash, or was doing The Flash, and with the art by Riley Rossmo. But yeah, so I could easily see, if they do this, they put it where it's going to be in Vertigo again, then you've essentially doubled the imprint with the comics that they've got right there.
And you bring something home to Vertigo that Vertigo is missing. One of the things that they didn't really shit on Vertigo was they took John Constantine and Swamp Thing back into the DC universe, and it made Vertigo seem even less compelling than it already was, because the main titles that it was known for were now gone. So since Sandman hadn't been getting published for a long time, and there were other Vertigo books that had come and gone, this was kind of like, we're just gonna put the death nail into it. What's weirder though is that right now I know that Daniel has been showing up in Dark Knight's Metal, correct?
Yes.
So there is again some mainstream DC Universe crossover happening with endless characters, and Neil's been a part of that, and he's been involved in it. One of the things that they tried to do in a book not too long ago is they tried to introduce somebody called Kid Endless, and it was like a direct rip of the Endless characters by Neil. And I think when that got leaked to Neil put the kibosh on it, which is another thing that I want to say about this. So the question is the motivation. Why is Neil doing this? Why is he interested in putting out these books that he's not really writing himself? And so there's certainly a monetary thing. But the other part of it is that right now we know DC is not doing a great job, in my personal opinion, of treating past creators with a lot of respect, of giving them their due for their work. We talked about the characters from America's Best Comics being used in other comics, like J.H. Williams's association with Alan Moore on Promethea, and then Chris Sprouse's work with Alan Moore on Tom Strong, that's supposed to be being used in the Terrifics. And neither of those creators being asked to use the character, being told that they were using the characters, taking them and inserting them into DC mainstream universe proper without even consulting them. Now, Alan Moore, they've already shit on with all the Watchmen stuff, and Dave Gibbons, same thing. It's like, we're just going to keep using it, and fuck you guys. And I feel like that's a bad space to be in. But here's Neil Gaiman, and Neil Gaiman's already in that corner of, if you guys want to use my stuff without my involvement, then you just won't have my involvement any further. They've had a good relationship with him. They screwed up the relationship with the artist who did the last Sandman series with J.H. Williams, but sure. How do you keep that good relationship? Well, Neil Gaiman, Neil, we would love to do more Sandman stuff. We would love to do more Sandman stuff with you. Do you have anything you want to do? Well, lads, he said to sound British. I would love to do some more stuff. I don't have any new Sandman things at the moment, but I could give you some stuff to work with. I would lead your team along. I'll help pick the people that work on this, and it will be Sandman-esque. And sure, that sounds great. That certainly sounds like a better pitch than Kid Endless by somebody who has nothing to do with Neil or any of his work. So yeah, let's go with that. And that's the thing is this a stopgap to allow Neil to keep working with DC while not really working on DC stuff at the moment, but to keep that relationship well founded when they're having bad luck with relationships, not bad luck, they're causing problems with other creators who they should have good relationships with.
Only time will tell. The other thing that I've been looking at with this is, because they've got, a lot of characters, and I feel like what they could do to help with this is, like, again, talk about the creators thing, because I finally watched Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics. That Beat has been like, you need to watch it, you need to watch it, you need to watch it, and all that stuff. And I watched the episode that was talking about Milestone Media.
I didn't know that Robert Kirkman's Secret History of Comics was actually called Snowpiercer.
No, this was his Beat's new Snowpiercer. Like, from watching that, I'm like, okay, I want to see more in the comics now, more of these other, like the Milestone characters. Like, I know Static Shock from, the TV show Static Shock. Never really read any of the comics, never really read any of the other stuff. And they had it a while back ago, and I know it sort of fell through because of Dwayne McDuffie's passing. But it's like, you guys could still do stuff here. Come on, get these characters out there. But yeah, and that's going to do it for the news, actually.
Well, just real fast, let's do an opinion scan. You have not read any Sandman, correct?
No, correct.
So, not having that knowledge going in, do any of these books grab your attention, or any of these things like, oh, I'd like to check that out? Like, if you've watched Lucifer, do you want to check out the Lucifer book? Or because I've drummed into your brain now that Tim Hunter was Harry Potter. Do you like Harry Potter and want to read a book about him as a teenager?
I think, and honestly, this is probably what I will end up doing, is I will probably pick up the Sandman Universe, number 1, because that seems like it's the entry point, the Marvel Legacy, DC Rebirth, for this, where it's going to be simple enough for the new people coming in, but yet going to bring enough new stuff for the veteran readers to, you like that what I did there instead of calling you old, where it's going to help fill both of us, and then go from there, knowing that this is going to lead into 4 books. Then I can go, okay, well, the Dreaming one sounded really, looked really good, or the House of Whispers sounded really good, like with however it could be, like, it could be like, all right, now I've got another problem. I like all 4 books, and I ain't got time to read comics. That could be and I hope that's the problem. I hope that's the case. Is it's just, oh my gosh, all 4 of these books are really good, and I want to read them all. And which, I mean, that just means it's probably going to be like one a week, for in the month. I probably will start off with Sandman Universe. They all sound good, but they don't sound, for me anyways, not reading any of Sandman in the past, to go, okay, I'm going to do this, to then have, I'm going to commit to these. It's like, let's do the tester and see how I fare with that.
Yeah, there's not the instant nostalgia pull again that is going to yank you into this because you don't have an experience with the characters at all. And that's completely fair. Is how do we take this and make it exciting for new readers? Now, one is, if you're at a comic store, the first thing you do is say, well, let's get you reading some Sandman stuff. All those trades exist. All those stories are out there. It's a pretty incredible journey to go on. So you should be reading that now. to prep yourself for this.
Yeah.
I always recommend, if you look at the density of the Sandman series and say, well, that seems a little intimidating, and it's a flavor that you have to kind of be into to get into it, because it's 90s goth comic books. Really. I would almost say the goth movement owes as much to Sandman as it does The Cure or Bauhaus or any other number of goth bands. But start with Death, the High Cost of Living. Death is Dream's sister. Her book is much lighter. It's a 4-issue miniseries. It's collected in the trade. It is a well-rounded one-shot story that gives you everything you need in that one book.
Yeah.
You can go from that to Death Time of Your Life, but certainly if you start with The High Cost of Living, I have not found any single person that I've gotten to read that book to say that, oh, that just wasn't for me. And it's, to me, just the best entry point into Neil's work and into the whole thing with the Endless.
Yeah. Awesome. I will definitely do that when I get caught up on comics.
Yep.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's GNCASTS.com.